Right, good morning. It is day 17 in our quarantine calorie crusher challenge. Man, we are getting close to the end. We got 5 more days remaining. And today is kind of it's actually sort of an intense message. It's actually what I call this is, or actually not me, I don't call it this. Viktor Frankl calls it this in the book I'm about to talk about. And it's the one last human freedom. The one last human freedom. Anyways, there is a great book that I want to make everyone aware of. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. Now, if you are not a man, that doesn't mean don't read this book. As a matter of fact, everyone should read this book because it applies equally to women. So do not let the title scare you away, because Man's Search for Meaning is simply about, well, you might not want to read it after I say this, but you should still read it. It's about suffering. And, well, it's about Viktor Frankl. He was his life. He was a Jew who survived the Holocaust. But he didn't just survive the Holocaust. He survived Auschwitz, the capital or the center of extermination for the Jewish population in Europe. And what he wrote about was very profound, very powerful, and very thought-provoking. He wrote about the one last human freedom that his Nazi captors could not take away, and that was the freedom to choose his own response to the stimulus, to the situation at hand. Now, if you don't know about his experience, he had to shovel out the ashes of his own parents. He saw his wife die. He saw his sister die. Only him and his brother survived. Either him, his brother, or nephew. But regardless of who survived, was his approach to suffering, what he called tragic optimism, and detaching himself from, well, his, what he said, I guess his experience or his body, looking at his experience from an outside perspective. So that even though he was being starved, nearly worked to death, in conditions that were not favorable to human existence, he was able to be detached in such a way that people would observe him and say, what personal power does this man have? And he actually attracted a lot of attention. People would seek him out for counsel. What's rather intriguing is that his own Nazi captors, they called them the capos, would seek him out for counsel because they actually were suffering with the suffering that they were inflicting. They, believe it or not, they actually had a guilt complex. And of all people, the guy that they were subjugating was their counselor, their psychiatrist, I guess. Anyways, he founded existentialist therapy. Here's a man who can, really kind of break things down. And what he said was, in between stimulus and response, or the knee-jerk response, is a space. And in that space lies the ability to choose your own response to the situation that you're going through. Right? Now, mind you, that's a perspective change. And if we were to compare different sufferings, that wouldn't be fair. But heck, if someone who survived a death camp has a perspective like this, then boy, it's I think we could certainly use that perspective to look at and apply it to our lives, whatever we are going through, whether it's a government trying to exterminate you based off of your ethnicity, or a coronavirus, a virus. So just interesting perspective. Reminded me of a great quote from the film, 2001 film Caesar, in which Caesar is pleading to the Senate to let Pompey put down a pirate rebellion. He says, what does he say? State, most men are ruled by circumstance, but men of character bend circumstance or their will, and behave in such a way that their will is carried out in this earth. And interesting thought process, interesting kind of book. Get and read that book. 2 questions for you. Number 1, have you ever been in a powerless situation? Well, who hasn't? Have you ever been in a powerless situation? And number 2, how could you have been in control of that powerless situation? All right. Day 17, tonight 7:30, we got a great workout planned. As we say here in the Courage Corner, live inspired and take action.